And good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Matt Delvecchio, specializing in home care, downsizing in the senior living industry. We have a great show ahead of us today. Coming right up, Heather and Mark Segal biked over 3,300 kilometers over 41 days on their journey, raising funds for charity. We're also going to hear from Ella Amir from AMI Quebec, discussing the organization's support for caregivers. And on the second half of the show, Laura Fish, President and CEO of the Douglas Foundation, dives into the organization's mission and services with some encouraging progress for mental health and brain research. Hope you're enjoying your day today. I was going to say a sunny day. Boy, it's sunny at one moment, blowing snow the other. Regardless, hope you're having a good Sunday afternoon, and thank you very much for tuning in to Life Unrehearsed. All right. 2 years ago, we had Heather and Mark Segal on this very show talking about their cycling journey from San Diego, California to Florida. Today, they're back on Life Unrehearsed, ready to talk all about their latest adventure from Vancouver to the U.S.-Mexico border. Originally from Montreal, they've been married for 30 years and support the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation through their ride. So far, they've raised over $30,000. Heather and Mark, welcome back to Life Unrehearsed.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having us back on the show.
Well,
hello, thank you.
Well, thanks to both of you. Wow, another great journey. And when I was following along on your blogs that you sent out, and really, people can't underestimate what it takes to bike 3,300 kilometers, a lot of elevation as well. So we want to hear all about it. Let's set it up. I believe you began your journey, was it around mid-September? Is that correct?
Yeah, it was September 19th. We left Vancouver, Canada. We, as you mentioned, it was 3,300 kilometers to the USA-Mexican border. We pedaled for 6 weeks, so that's about 90 kilometers a day average, and that's self-supported. We're carrying our own gear. There's no van support. We took 4 days off and biked every other day.
Just amazing. And you started in Vancouver. Heather, I have to ask you, this is, I think, your third big trip like this, and it still must be a little nerve-wracking in setting up. How was the training? What did you and Mark have to do for setting up for this particular one? Because I think you had some additional elevation to deal with this time.
Yes, we did. Well, we continued to train just like we did for our prior two by cycling and practicing in hilly areas and by using panniers. And we would put weights in the panniers, sometimes like physical weights like dumbbells. And also we'd throw cans of beans in there to sort of simulate riding with weight. And the trip was interesting. It was certainly different from the other two. It was more challenging in the sense that we had double the average daily climb compared to last year's trip when we cycled down the East Coast. And we also had to deal with weather, which was a new challenge for us in terms of cold and rainy weather. It was about 6 degrees Celsius on a number of days with heavy rain. So that was definitely tricky for us. And we didn't practice in rain. So that was something new for us.
Yeah, the good old weather component. Can't imagine, here you are with elevation, climbing twice as much that you would normally, and got to deal with the elements as well. And so I guess, would you say, Mark, from the other two trips, and just to refresh our listeners, you did from California to Florida. You also did the East Coast, right? I believe it was from Maine to Florida, if I'm not mistaken. This one is from Vancouver to the U.S., Canada, Mexico border. What stood out in this one compared to the other two? That was, you mentioned the weather. Anything else that stood out that gave you a few challenges?
Well, aside from the rain and the cold, I think the bigger challenge was the elevation. We knew that going in, but once you're there, it's much harder than it is when you're looking at a map or just kind of plotting it. Yeah, there's no substitute. You got to just kind of grind up some of these really long hills.
Yeah, when I'm talking with Heather and Mark Segal here on Life Unrehearsed about their journey from Vancouver to the U.S.-Mexico border, all in a great cause, raising funds for the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. Heather, I saw on your blog the schedule that you had planned. Did you have to improvise along the way, or did you pretty well stick to schedule?
Yeah, I mean, mostly, it's a good question. We mostly had a plan that Mark gets the credit for it. He was the one who put it together. We stuck to it for the most part. Really, the one detour that we had was we had thought we would not be able to go through Big Sur because they had closed the road due to a landslide earlier that year. But we managed to figure out a way to make it through. We had to, after hours, work our way through a bit of a construction zone. But ultimately, we got through, and it was a spectacular day. And we felt very grateful to have that day and that experience of riding along the coast.
Well, a total of 41 days. I believe it was 90 kilometers per day that you averaged. And Mark, you are meeting a lot of people in a lot of towns. Any encounters or interactions that stood out with locals?
Aside from the beautiful scenery, that is the most memorable part, is the people you meet. Three individuals come to mind. One was just while sitting at lunch one day, a pastor came over to us and asked if he could pray for us. And two other individuals were, in one spot, we were a bit stranded away from town, needing a place to go for dinner. And the fellow at the hotel just offered us to use his car. Total strangers, here, take my car, go to town. And the last guy, and this is what allowed us to go through Big Sur, we learned that you can go through after hours, but it meant we'd be there in the dark and there was no place to stay. And an individual let us stay in his home, and he was out of town. He said, I'll leave the back door open, just let yourself in, help yourself to anything you need, and just trusted us as complete strangers. And that's through this bike community we're part of called Warm Showers, which is cyclists who host other cyclists. But usually you're there. This guy gave us his home, and he was completely away and totally trusting of us.
I just love that. And look, after 41 days, 3,300 kilometers, Vancouver to the U.S.-Mexico border, what was that feeling like on your last day arriving to your destination?
It's bittersweet. Each of the 3 years when you finish, there's that sense of accomplishment and delight at finishing, and there's a sense of sadness that it's over, because you come to really embrace the daily life and the daily adventure of being outdoors and cycling and knowing that you're doing this for this great cause. So it's both satisfying and sad to see it come to an end.
And I guess some of those prayers that you were asking for came true. I heard that you didn't have a single flat tire, either of you. Is that true in such a journey?
That is true and unbelievable, because
It really
the first trip that we had, I personally had many flat tires, and a little bit last year, but this year we were very lucky to have none.
Way to go. All right, we just have to wrap it up here, but you're involved with the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, raising over $30,000. Can you tell us a little bit more about the foundation?
Gladly. And for anyone who's not aware, the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation is dedicated to curing spinal cord injury by advancing research and improving quality of life for individuals impacted. Over the last few years, we've just been touched by two individuals' strength of character who live with paralysis. One is our old friend Lenny from Montreal, and the second is our family friend Ernie in New York, who just 4 years ago, when he was 18, in his first week of college in Miami, was pushed by a freak wave and burst his C6 vertebra and paralyzed chest down. Both Lenny and Ernie inspire us with their positivity, and we thought of them daily for motivation as we cycled up mountains or through rain or dealt with our physical exhaustion. We've dedicated rides now for 3 years, and happy to share that it's over 3 years. It's just shy of $100,000 that we've raised for this foundation and the work they do, which is so critical.
Way to go. Great to hear. Wonderful cause. Just before we let you go, if listeners want to contribute to the cause, where do they go?
Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. And I'm happy to send a link to you that I don't know whether you can share afterwards, or just through we have an individual fundraising page, but the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation is the best place to go to.
Sure,
Christine. Give.reeve.org.
All right,
and you go there.
Give.reeve.org. Okay, well, wonderful.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. Great job. And I know there's got to be something up your sleeve for the future. Next time you're done, we're going to have to hear all about it, okay? So keep us up to date.
We look forward to it. Thank you for having me.
Good.
All right.
Thank you, Matt. It was a pleasure to be here today.
Most welcome.
Take care.
Thank you. All right, coming up next on Life Unrehearsed, how families and caregivers can get support. We're going to have Ella Amir from Ami Quebec, who's going to be joining me next.